With VCT Champions coming to a close, we've been able to see so many new agent comps over the last 2 weeks that have really shaken up the meta. It's really important you are paying attention closely because picking the right agents is easily one of the best ways you can gain elo quickly in Valorant. Just by playing a worse agent, you could be costing yourself games, and that's why we like to keep our tier lists up to date, to make sure our subscribers are the most prepared players in the game. It's almost like we just have a breed of super soldiers over here, ready to steal your elo. The game's not hard when you know what buttons to push. With our world-class courses, we can get any player up to date and ready to dominate the competition. We're so confident, in fact, we offer a rank improvement guarantee, meaning if for some reason we can't help you rank up, you won't pay. That's because our main goal at SkillCapped is to actually help you improve. Let's get into the tier list, but if you're looking to rank up this act, you know where to find us. Starting at the bottom, we have the D tier, and there's only one agent down here this time around. Unfortunately, that agent is Yoru. Sorry, Yoru fans. A lot of the hype has died down since his rework a while ago, and it really does show in the stats. He's pretty much the only agent in the game that doesn't seem to be seeing any meaningful amount of play in both the pro scene and the ranked ladder. In Champions Istanbul, Yoru had the second lowest pick rate out of any agent at barely over 1%. It's very disappointing, to be honest. Unfortunately, this isn't just a problem with Yoru, but with duelists in general. We're currently in a meta dominated by initiators, and with Chamber being so powerful, he kinda just does a duelist job in some ways. So unless you're one of the few really powerful duelists in the game, there's no real space for you on a team comp. Hopefully Yoru gets some buffs soon, but for now, he's stuck in the D tier. Moving on to the C tier, we have a sum pool of agents to talk about. Starting off, let's talk about the Sentinels, Killjoy and Cypher. Again, these are agents that are currently being overshadowed by Chamber, who just has stronger utility and is more versatile, but they're not unplayable. They both have their moments with maps where they can see some decent use. Killjoy, for example, had a healthy 40% pick rate on Ascent during Champions, which is not bad, all things considered. The only problem is that it's a little hard to justify picking either of them in solo queue when Chamber is an option. They're both just missing the playmaking potential that he offers that's just so important when trying to climb in a ranked environment. They're not bad picks, but again, they're also not the best ones either. So for now, they're both sitting comfortably in the C tier. The other pair of agents we have in the C tier for this patch are Phoenix and Reyna, who similar to Killjoy and Cypher are currently underperforming. Reyna actually held the lowest pick rate out of all agents during Champions, and the only reason she isn't lower on the list is because she at least has a niche in solo queue. Her ability to take advantage of lobbies with less coordination makes her a lot more viable in that setting, where in pro play, she just doesn't have the same opportunities to pop off. She currently has about a 7 to 8% pick rate in Immortal lobbies, which isn't anything crazy, but is definitely enough to earn her a spot in the C tier. Phoenix, on the other hand, is more balanced, where he is seeing some play in both pro play and in solo queue. The big problem with Phoenix is that he isn't really great at anything, meaning that he has a hard time standing out. His kit is made to take space and open up sites, but he does that worse than an agent like Reyn, and he also doesn't have a way to get out of danger like Jett does with her dash. This makes it hard for him to take first contact in a lot of cases, since he relies on being able to land a flash on enemies, and the role of flashes is already done better by an agent like Kayo, who also offers a lot more as an agent. So because of that, we placed Phoenix in the C tier. He's not a bad pick, but still could use a buff. With the C tier out of the way, let's move on to the B tier. In our opinion, this is the tier where the agents start to become considered viable and actually see meaningful play, even if it's only on a couple of maps. Kicking off the B tier, we have Neon, who is of course a very niche agent, but does see play on the map Fracture. During Champions, she even had a 70% pick rate on the map, which is actually quite impressive. She's a little bit harder to make work in solo queue since she does require a team to know how to play with and around her, but if your mechanics are good enough, you can make her work. She's a very skill-intensive agent that is also very rewarding when mastered, but if you're able to master her, she's a very solid pick. The next agent we placed in the B tier this patch is Skye. Skye is currently being overshadowed a bit by some of the other initiators, but she's not a terrible spot by any means. She still has a ton of very useful utility that any team would be happy to have. It's just there are some other agents that do her job better. If your team needs info gathering, Sova just does it better, and if you want an agent with flashes, Kayo is probably the better pick. But that hasn't stopped Skye from still finding a place in the meta. She saw a healthy amount of play on Bind with a pick rate of 75% during Champions. So although Skye is a little down, she most certainly is not out. Next up in the B tier, we have placed both Astra and Brimstone. Both these controllers are very solid agents, but are just a step below the other two in terms of power level. That being said, they both have maps where their utility allows them to still see play at the highest level. Brimstone excels on smaller maps with tight spaces, where his ultimate can get a ton of value, and he's able to smoke the map comfortably. Bind and Fracture are the big ones where he's currently seeing play. Astra, on the other hand, is the opposite. She has no limit to the range in her abilities, so she can operate just fine on larger maps. She's currently seeing play on Pearl, where her ability to help out any part of the map is extremely useful. Pearl is also a map where her Cosmic Divide can get a ton of value, especially on the B site, and her other utility is still very strong in the right hands. Overall, both of these agents are solid picks and fit nicely into the B tier this patch. The last agent we placed in the B tier this patch is Sage. Sage has been the definition of a B tier agent for quite a while now. She hasn't really been overpowered, but she's still a solid pick everywhere, and she even has her maps where she's a great pick. Sage is kind of just fair. Of course, the map she shines on the most is Icebox, where she sees a ton of play, but she's also one of those agents that's playable on almost any other map too. She hasn't seen a ton of play everywhere else, but she still gets picked by teams a few times on almost every map. Sage just has great utility that's useful no matter what the situation is, and because of that, she has a spot in our B tier this patch. With the B tier out of the way, it's time we move on to the A tier. In my opinion, this is where the agents are officially considered meta. Making it into the A tier is a great honor and is not something that should be taken lightly. And to start off the A tier, let's talk about Breach. Breach is an agent that always seems to fall in and out of the meta from patch to patch, but right now he is definitely in. He has a spot in a lot of teams on the maps Haven and Fracture, but also has seen some fringe play on Bind. Breach is one of those agents that's harder to play in solo queue since his power comes from being able to set up his teammates. But if you're playing him with a duo or are in higher rated lobbies where the communication is better, he can put in a ton of work. Breach has one of the best flashes in the game. His fault line is both strong and hard to dodge if used properly, and his Rolling Thunder can end rounds on its own. Overall, a fantastic pick right now and a solid A tier agent. Next up in the A tier this patch, we have both Reyn and Jett. They're easily the two best duelists in the game right now, and there's not really any competition. Which one of them is better? Well, it mostly depends on the map. Reyn is better on maps with more tight spaces with shorter angles, where Jett excels on maps where she can engage in gunfights from a longer range. That's why you'll find Reyn more commonly picked on maps like Bind, while Jett sees more play on a map like Breeze. Either way, both of them have a ton of valuable utility. Their mobility makes them both very versatile and hard to deal with in the right hands, and you can't really go wrong with picking one of them. Speaking of versatility, the next agent we placed in the A tier for this patch is Sova. There are very few maps where you wouldn't be happy to see a Sova on your team. Although not always the most optimal pick, his utility is still always a welcome addition to any team comp. You can't go wrong with having an Owl, Drone, and a Recon Bolt. In the right hands, Sova can do so much for a team. He can gather intel, get picks, stall pushes, he's strong on post plants, you name it. During Champions, he saw the most play on Icebox and Breeze, which isn't that much of a surprise. Those are both maps where his utility is pretty much irreplaceable. So if you're looking for a strong initiator to pick up, Sova is a great option. Moving on, the next two agents in our A tier are Omen and Viper. What can I say? They're just the strongest controllers right now. Omen is an agent that's very versatile and playable on almost any map that requires basic smokes, and even has one of the best blinds in the game. Omen also has the ability to place his smokes inside of walls, allowing him to create one-ways in spots where no other agent can. Viper, on the other hand, is more specialized thanks to her having a wall instead of regular smokes. But that means that any maps that require that wall make her a must-have on those maps, since she doesn't really have a replacement. Viper's other utility is also extremely powerful. Her mollies and orb are extremely hard to deal with on both sides of the map. When defending, she can put up a one-way and throw down a molly, which allows her to stall very well. While on the attack side, she has one of the best post plants in the game. And don't get me started on her ult. Oh, the ult. Viper and Omen are both very strong picks right now and easily earn their spot in the A tier for this patch. We're almost ready to talk about the S tier, but before we do that, we still have one more agent to talk about in the A tier. That agent is Kayo. Kayo is one of the most versatile agents in the game right now, and held over a 40% pick rate in Champions across all of the maps. He's been picked at least once on every single map in the pool, and even has over a 50% pick rate on 4 of the maps. Those maps are Ascent, Icebox, Breeze, and Pearl. Kayo's kit just does everything you need. He has a very strong flash, a molly, and the suppression mechanic is extremely valuable. Being able to turn off all the enemy's abilities is just so powerful. It makes executing onto sight so much easier, and on defense, it's great for stalling pushes. And in a game where utility is as strong as it is, being able to turn it off can feel borderline unfair at times. Kayo is just absolutely crazy in the right hands, so if you're able to play him well, you will find a ton of success guaranteed. And just like I promised, it's time we get into the S tier. There are only a couple of agents still left to talk about, so if you've been keeping track, you probably already know who made the cut. Starting off the S tier is, of course, Chamber. If you're looking for an agent that does everything, then here you go. There's a reason all the other Sentinels got low spots in this list. Chamber is just way too strong. First of all, he has the best trip in the game that can only be countered by agents that can smoke it off. But if you can't, there's no way to get around it since it covers a large area and the slow is very crippling if you get caught in it. He's also able to play aggressively, similar similar to how a duelist would get early picks thanks to his rendezvous ability. Funny enough, that ability is also one of the reasons Chamber is one of the best oppers in the game, combined with the fact that he comes with a Pocket Guardian, of course. And oh yeah, he's also really good at saving for the op since his ultimate is also a free operator, meaning he doesn't even have to buy a gun every few rounds. And even if he was saving for a round, he can still get to use his Headhunter, which can one-shot kill enemies with a headshot from any range anyways, so it's not like it's really a save. Chamber is overloaded, there's not much else to say. The nerfs he got a few patches ago definitely helped a little bit, but not enough to kick him out of the meta, that's for sure. Chamber is an S-tier agent, and it's pretty hard to argue his spot. The other S-tier agent on this list is Fade. What can I say? She's strong. Her kit just does so much and combos so well together. She's versatile enough to be played on almost any map, and she's currently being played on almost every map. During Champions, she had over a 50% pick rate, which is second only to Chamber. If Fade finds you and unleashes all of her utility on you, it's basically over. There's not much you can do when you're revealed and marked by her haunt, snared, and then chased down by her prowlers. Fade is one of the harder agents to play in my opinion, but if you get the hang of her, she can do a lot. She's definitely earned her spot in our S tier, that's for sure. And that concludes this agent tier list for patch 5.06. If there are any agents you think deserved a different spot on this list, make sure to let us know in the comments. If you made it this far into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, all of us here at SkillCapped want to give you a huge thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.